Yizkor. It's such a strange day to be doing Yizkor. The last day of Pesach is a Yom Tov because it is the day that the sea split. So the Seder night is the evening of Pesach, and it commemorates that night that we were all told to stay in our houses. No Jew was allowed to leave their house in Egypt, and that night Hashem went through Egypt and killed the firstborn Egyptians. The next morning we came out of our house, and amongst the chaos that Egypt would have been going through, we headed towards the ocean. And over the next few days we traveled, and we arrived at the ocean, and we hit this standstill. Behind us, the Egyptian army were coming to recapture us, kill us, whatever it was that their intentions were. And in front of us was this body of water that hundreds of thousands, millions of people couldn't possibly cross. Menachem ben Aminadab, the leader of the tribe of Judah, walks into the ocean. And as the water reaches his nose, the sea splits. And therefore the last days of Yom Tov, the last days of Pesach, are a very special day. It's just so weird that that's one of the 4 days of the year that we've been told to do Yizkor. Yizkor is such a sad time. It's this recollection of people we've loved and who have gone on to their world. In fact, Yizkor was born out of a very, very tragic and sad period of Jewish history. In 1096, just after the First Crusade, in the months after the launch, tens of thousands of Jews in Europe had been massacred. And the Germanic rabbis actually created a Yizkor, which is not quite the same as what we have today, but it was to remember all the Jews that had died. And then, ironically, a couple hundred years later, after the Black Death, thousands of Jews had been killed during the Black Death, not actually by the plague, but actually by anti-Semites who saw the Jews as being the cause of the Black Death. And to commemorate those who had been killed, the Yizkor was formalized. And so we've got these tragedies as being the origins of the Yizkor. And of course, we've got to mention loved ones at particular times of the year, but to tie it up with this moment when the sea split and we went free and we were so liberated seems like such an odd time to do Yizkor. So I'm going to draw on a cryptic statement that the Talmud makes to help us understand why now and what we can learn, particularly in our lives right now, from Yizkor. So the Talmud says that the splitting of the sea was as difficult, no, not as difficult. It was the most difficult thing God had ever done. What the Talmud says is as difficult as splitting of the sea is making shidduchim, making partners between people to get married. Talmud says that is as hard as splitting the sea. So why was it so hard for God to split the sea? And why is it so hard to make shidduchim? How could you even say it was hard for God to split the sea if God is the creator of the sea? Hashem is the divine creator of everything. It doesn't say anywhere, you know why it took God 6 days to make the world? Because it was really hard. Nothing's hard. Nothing's hard for the infinite to create. So why was it so hard to split the sea? And if it's so hard, why is shidduchim so hard? We see plenty of people get married. Yeah, there's a divorce rate, but it's not as high as the marriage rate. So what's all that? And really, the deep, dark question that I want to ask is, what's Yizkor to do with shidduchim, with marriages and engagements, and what's it to do with the splitting of the sea? So let's just explore the splitting of the sea for a moment. The splitting of the sea was nature defying itself. And there are walls of water, the land is dry, the sand at the bottom of the sea, and the Jewish people can walk. And not only that, we're told, the Medrash tells us there are beautiful trees that grow out of the water walls and birds overhead. The trees have fruit and the birds are singing. So much detail, so much almost wasteful miracle. Like, it was cool. Dayenu, it split the sea. We walked through Dayenu. Why the added trees and the fruit and the birds? We were going somewhere. This wasn't just about freedom. This was about where we were heading. We were heading into the desert. And some 40-something days later, we'd end up at the foot of Mount Sinai. A few days later, Moses would walk up and we'd have the revelation of the Ten Commandments, where Hashem came down and said, hey, I have a spiritual goal to this world. Does anyone here want to actually turn the physical, mundane into spiritual elevation? And we all said, yeah, pick me. Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will listen. And so the splitting of the sea was actually this pathway to a beautiful engagement and a marriage that would take place between us and our soul. We would develop a relationship with our nefesh elokit, with our godly soul, which Hashem would place in us and say, you are not just people, you are people with a purpose. Now go and replicate this. Go and find everything and say, you are not an object, you are not an animal, you are not a person, but you have a purpose, you have a soul. And with that, there was this relationship. But the relationship was odd. It's odd to have a relationship with Hashem. Hashem is the infinite. Hashem is the spirit of all. Hashem is everything, all physicality, all conceptuality, everything. What does it mean I have a relationship with that? I'm just a tiny aspect of a physical, finite universe that is just a single concept within an infinite number of concepts. What does it mean? And yet Hashem says, you've got a relationship with me. I came down onto the mountain. Hashem is present, and Hashem is present in our lives. That is incredible. The splitting of the sea was an incredible moment because it defied nature. The nature that Hashem created had to be broken in order for something miraculous to happen. The sea splitting was not a natural occurrence. It was God, the infinite, coming into the finite and saying, I created the finite and now I'm going to make it behave in a non-finite way. I'm going to make it defy gravity. I'm going to make water flow up. I'm going to make the wetland dry, and I'm going to make trees grow from water, not from the earth. And birds are not going to be scared of a multitude of people. They're going to come and escort them. The whole thing was miraculous. And that miracle was what gave rise to the ability for us to go into a relationship with Hashem. That's what this Yom Tov is about. What does it have to do with Yizkor? Well, here's one idea. Yizkor is about bringing our loved ones into the celebration of Yom Tov. It started off by remembering those who had died and saying, you're a part of our Yom Tov. We remember you. But it's odd because it's kind of sad to remember our loved ones. Why bring them into a day that we've been told by the Torah to be happy? And while I can't answer that particular question right now, I'd like to focus on the fact that we do it. What we do is we sit in a shul, or this year you're going to sit at home, and we Yizkor, we mention, we don't just recall, we mention the names of our loved ones. And we force ourselves into a relationship with them. Even though it might be more comfortable to not go down that path. Once someone has been buried, once we've said goodbye to a loved one, let them be in their world and us in our world. Why do we have to go back into the relationship? It hurts. We miss them. We long for them. And to go into that relationship can be quite hard and emotional. And if there was challenges in the relationship and there's the inability to now go back and heal those challenges or deal with those issues in the relationship, that hurts even more. So why bring it into my Yom Tov? Well, you're not bringing that into the Yom Tov. You're bringing their soul into Yom Tov. You're bringing them into your life, and you're saying, Yizkor Elokim, Hashem, remember. I'm mentioning their names. And it says that I am going to do prayers, and I'm going to do good deeds, and I'm going to give charity on their behalf. That's what the Yizkor prayer says. We bring them into our Yom Tov and we say, Mom, Dad, brother, sister, husband, wife, child, sibling. You're not forgotten, nor are you a memory. You're a part of my reality. What did you represent as a soul? You represented all that is good. You represent the spirituality. That spirituality probably manifests in some sort of value system in your life, some sort of phrase that you lived by, some sort of teaching that you felt was important. I want to bring that into my life right now. I'd like to embody it. I'd like to live you out through my body. I want your soul to be a part of my existence. And I want to be a part of your existence. And what I can give you is the action that you, as a soul in the world to come, in Gan Eden, are not able to achieve. But I will be your legs. I will be your hand. And with that, we find a simcha, that our loved ones are actually able to continue impacting this world through us. It's an unnatural relationship. It's an odd relationship. We can't hug them. We can speak, but we can't hear them. We can ask, but we don't get answers. We can want to see them, but they can't show themselves. It's unnatural to enter into such a relationship. But if we do go into the soulful relationship of the Yizkor, then seas begin to split. Blessings begin to flow. A strange comfort is found within. A deeper connection is discovered. Even though there are none of the physical pathways to develop this relationship, the effects of the relationship become more real. In these very challenging times of the coronavirus, we are in an unnatural period. We're not meant to be stuck in the home that we're in the way we are. Our home is meant to be our base so that we can leave and do things and come back and rest. And we're now stuck. And that makes relationships really hard. It makes the relationship with parents who might be in an old age home or parents who live elsewhere and we can't access them, we can't see them, we can't hug them, really hard. It makes the relationship with a spouse more challenging. There are more anxieties. There are more crazy thoughts. There are nerves around finance, around health. Introverts and extroverts respond differently when they are stuck and cooped up. That can be putting a toll on the relationship with a lover, with a partner, with a spouse. There can be a challenge in the relationship with children. Cooped up, younger kids, driving you nuts. These are the most precious parts of our family, and yet they can drive you a little mad. Or perhaps there are none of those people. Perhaps you're alone. And the relationship with self is deteriorating as the impacts of loneliness kick in. The thoughts, the inability to connect with other people except via phone and video conference, which doesn't really do it. The inability to be able to touch someone and hold someone, to share a meal with someone, that we can't have. And therefore the relationship with the self becomes a bit of a scary relationship. Perhaps it's a relationship we didn't want to have like this, but we're forced into it. Why does the Talmud say that making shidduchim is as hard as the splitting of the sea? It's because to do a shidduch, for two people to get married, they have to occupy the same space. That's unnatural. It's not normal that a person says, for the rest of my life, I want you to always be there. When I'm in a bad mood, I want you there. When I want to be alone, I want you there. When I don't want your opinion, I want you there. It should be, having a relationship is beautiful, but it should always be on our terms. What's natural is to protect our space. What's natural is that two things don't occupy the same space. Two objects can't live in the same space. Two atoms can't live in the same space. And you want two people to live in the same space? And that is as hard to achieve as the splitting of the sea. But the sea split and relationships last. In the unnatural reality of the splitting of the sea, we went to Sinai. And in the unnatural reality of Yom Tov, in the unnatural relationship between our loved ones after they've passed away, we have Yom Tov to bring us together. And in this moment, we have other things that are forcing us together. And if we allow our seas to split, if we say, I would like to venture into that relationship, I'd like the water to rise to my nose. Not I relish it, but I will allow it to, and I will go forward. I will enter into this relationship during Yizkor with my loved one. I'll enter into the relationship with myself, my spouse, my child, my parent in these weird times. I'll enter into a relationship with Hashem in this period of the year. Then we'll watch the seas split. We'll see miracles of, not only we'll find a path, but trees with fruit will sprout and birds will come to sing. The fulfillment of the relationship will become all the more rich. In the merit of doing Yizkor together being yourself with your loved one whose soul is going to come into your space, there will be a fruition of trees. There will be fruit which are born, blessings that will manifest, and songs that will be heard from the angels on high, from the souls on high, like the birds when we split the sea. I want to wish you a good Yom Tov, and I want you to go into Yizkor, of course with the tear that it always brings, but with the joy. Ashreinu, how lucky we are that we have this festival to allow us to encounter our loved ones once again. Good Yom Tov.